So we got another MS1. This is a 180C, but 170 applies. MS210, 230. Same principles apply. But what we're trying to diagnose here is it's not oiling. So we're going to take this clutch off, check the worm gear, check all that first before we get into replacing the pump and whatnot. So give me 2 seconds to get this clutch off. So what you have a little snap, like a C-clip here, and then a washer. So when you're looking at this, so you got your clutch, your washer slides off, goes over the shaft, and then this ring would snap down. There's a groove in the crankshaft, so that would snap in there. I used just a scrunch. You can use a flathead screwdriver, whatever works for you. The only thing is when you're prying it, what I find is if you put a finger over top of your C-clip as you're prying on it, it just reduces the chance of it going for a flight. So you just gotta make sure what you're protecting is the rounded part of it. You don't need a lot of pressure, just hold your finger there, just lightly, so it can't take off on you. Once you get that off, got the clutch off. It's a little dirty, that's butter all. Check the clutch bearing, it looks okay. Sometimes what will happen, because these are nylon cage, sometimes what will happen over time or when they get hot, it'll start to grind, and almost like if you go fishing, this will make sense, especially on a closed face fishing reel. Sometimes the line will loosen up and tangle around, like around your spool. Same idea with the nylon will happen around your crankshaft. So you've got to pull the spark plug out. You can use piston stops. I've never used one in my life. I've heard too many bad things about them. Sometimes they work great, sometimes they don't. What happens is when you put your stop in here, like into your spark plug hole, and you go to put pressure on your yeah, this thing's running, Rich. Good old fixed jet. Not much you can do about it unless you swap out the carbs to lean them out a little bit. Anyways, with the piston stop, when you put it in there, what can happen is when you're torquing on your flywheel nut or your clutch in this case, you can put too much pressure, and if it's a bad spot, you can bugger up your piston indefinitely, then you have to replace it. So, where are we in orientation here? Come up a bit. This thing's in really good shape. There. I can't get my camera in there to show you guys, so I just came up a bit with the piston so it covers the exhaust port, and it'll be close to covering up the transfers. We're just going to take some rope. This is just paracord from Princess Auto. Harbor Freight for you folks down south. So what this is going to do, because it's a lot softer, when you go to loosen your clutch, this will kind of get spread through the cylinder a little bit more, and it's a lot softer than hitting a steel or whatever they are piston stop, and it distributes the weight better across the piston. Now what I find doing this is we'll try it with the scrunch and see what happens. I don't know. A lot of the time I actually have to see, I'm holding the rope there so it can't back out. Put a little bit of pressure on there so the rope can't back out. Let me find my other scrunch. Give me a sec. I don't know where that other scrunch is. I don't like using this one because with it being so short, I like to have a longer one so I can actually hold the other end. So this one's too small, but if I had it on there, I could put it on, support this end, and turn it at the same time. Because what can happen, because these things aren't as machined nicely as a socket, and I prefer to use a socket, and I will if I have to, but we're going to try this wrench because I had it handy. But what happens with these, if you try just to turn it, a lot of the time it'll twist and then slip off. It really, really sucks. So we're going to try this first and see what happens. Ah, I missed that. Didn't record it. No biggie. clutch goes that way towards the front to loosen off on this one. So got your clutch, then your washer behind it, your spacer. Now what you got to check for, I showed in one of my last videos why it's important not to idle your chain with the chain brake on, is because your clutch is still turning or trying to turn inside the clutch drum. So here, this, so when you have your chain brake on, right, so if it's sitting in properly, it's like kind of like that. So your chain brake locks onto your clutch, then you got your clutch drum, sorry, and then your clutch is trying to spin inside of here. So what happens is it heats up, it has to go somewhere. It has to transfer through stuff. So a lot of the time it'll go into your clutch. On these saws, like the 180s, 170s, 017s, 018s, the 210s, 021s, 023s, MS230s, once the heat goes from your clutch to your clutch drum, it transfers, it'll melt this plastic around here. Because like I said, it has to heat has to transfer through something. So that what's after your clutch drum? Your brake pad. So that heat will come in here and destroy this plastic. Also, case in point, it'll destroy that bearing I was showing you guys that came out. And it also destroys your worm gear. This one is not wrecked. It's like I'm holding the worm gear. That little, like the little arm is not moving anywhere. It's in there solid. So that heat will transfer and melt all this plastic around that. I don't know if that's a steel or an actual brass bushing, but it'll melt. And this arm, not uncommon, will just fall off, or it'll just freewheel on this plastic. But like I said, here everything is, it's good. Like there's nothing damaged. Everything's in good shape from what I can tell. Just a little dirty in there. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to give her a little quick wipey here. Give me 2 secs. Sorry, my lighting is not the greatest. Actually, you know, here, I want to drop my camera a little bit and see if that might help the camera angle for you guys. That's about as low as I can get my camera. And I can't zoom. So, when you put your worm gear back in, you put it in. Well, look, it doesn't seat all the way, right? There's a gap up here between the case and the top of that. You just wiggle, jiggle, and push forward, and it'll seat right in. And we're in all the way. Washer. Hopefully that shows up okay. It's an offset washer. Boom. That goes in next. Now the clutch. There's a little bit of oil. I'm just going to give her a little wipey and some brake clean before we put her back in here. Just get any dirt, any crud. This thing's in good shape. It's not burnt. If it shows up okay. If it's burnt, you'll see like bluing on your actual clutch pucks here. On either side or both sides, but this one's in good shape. Put that back in. Never use a tool to put these back in. See, I used just the way of the clutch, and that was enough to, there we go. It was enough to jam it on a cross thread. So, that is in. Just crank her around. A little bit here. There, we still got the rope in the cylinder, right? So, just going to use the wrench to snug her up. Snugged up. What I will do though, I can't do it right now, just can't start this inside. Once I get the clutch drum on and get it running again outside, I'll rev it up and hit the chain brake. Do that a couple of times. Like I'll do half throttle burp, hit the chain brake. What that will do, it'll take your crank and seat on that clutch a little tighter. At the end of it, I end up giving her a whole quite a few revs and hit that chain brake a couple times. I'll do it 3, 4, sometimes 5 times, and just get that clutch to lock in. clutch isn't burnt either. If you look at the outer part, none of it is burnt. This area here by the spur is not burnt. Inside's really clean. I wish this would show up better for you guys. I just washed it with brake clean, but I mean, it's not blued, it's not gouged, nothing else. Give me a sec. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of grease and the clutch drum bearing and just make sure you get a lot of grease on there. You don't want to put these things in dry. It does reduce the life of the clutch drum or the clutch bearing. I'm trying to push it through. I don't know if it's going to show up on the needles. No, light's not the greatest, but I'm trying to get it pushed through onto the needles on the other side, just so I know these things do have a lot of grease in there. Grease does not last long on these. There you go. You put the clutch drum on, you really don't want to get any grease anywhere on the clutch or inside the clutch drum. Now, I don't know if this is going to show up. I can see it, but such a small little nub. Yeah, it doesn't show up on there. So, when you look on the outer rim of the clutch itself, you'll see the little, so you'll see that little arm that we put back in on that worm gear. And this clutch here has that little knob right there, or that little recess place. That's what that little rod goes through. So we put this on. You know, like you might think you're in place, but chances are you probably aren't. So you just take the clutch, spin it around, and you'll feel it just seat in just a smidge more. And if you're ever in doubt, I'll pull it out, check where that divot is, and check where the rod is, just to make sure it went from one position to the next, which it did. Now I can eyeball it. I still do the same thing. I still spin it. There we go. It's locked in place. Perfect. Now let's get that washer back on. Get the C-clip back in. These things can be a pain. Sometimes they'll slide on nice. Sometimes they don't. I like using pliers for this. But I'll sometimes use a scrunch of the flathead and just place on top. Just give it a whack with my hand and seat her in place, but there, it's in. Okay, so since we know that is not the problem, now we have to look at what else can potentially be the problem here. Pull that rope out, we don't need it anymore. Plug back in, keep any dirt out of the cylinder. So what else can the issue be here? The issue can also be the oil pump itself. It can also be a plugged filter in the oil tank. So what we're going to do is, I've already popped the grommets out of the side of this handle. Now what I have to do is pull these. In this case, I've got to take a second look, but I'm pretty sure it's just rubbers. I don't think this one has any sort of screws, fasteners. No. Okay. There's a little rubber grommets, or not grommets, these plugs for the grommets. You got to pull those out. And next what you have to do is get that grommet out, that grommet out, that grommet out, because that locks the handle into the case. So what we're trying to do is get behind here to get into where the oil pump is. So give me a minute. All right, that took some creativity. Sometimes these bushings come out easy and sometimes they do not. I actually had to come in with using the scrunches on the back side of these two, get them to start, and then massage them out. The same thing with that bottom one. Yeah, that was a pain. And then I also forgot to mention, you also have to disconnect your throttle linkage, whether you take it off with the carburetor or you take it off in the handle. I did mine at the handle. There's two Torx that hold this half on. One here, one further up here. Then when you take it off, then you have your trigger, your spring, your safety lever. You just take it off. But if you undo it from the carb, you can leave the whole handle part alone here instead, in lieu of this works out good because I can give this thing a good cleaning. So right out of the gate, I can already see the problem. Let's get a light and we hope this shows up. So I didn't know if it was going to be an oil pump, that worm gear issue, or whatnot. What it appears to be is the oil from the oil pump or oil tank to the oil pump. Shoot, sorry, I just using my cell phone. I'm not sure if you can see, there's a gap. You can see how easy that is moving around. So that's supposed to plug in. There's a slot right above my finger. That's where that goes. And that's the oil pump. I don't know if you can see it. Probably not very good. Try not to put a spike in my hand. That will suck. I've done that a couple of times now. Yeah, you see there's a metallic thing in that hole there. That's the oil pump. And usually if you got to replace that, you put a screw in there, just pull it out. And just keep going. Just you pull it out from there, you replace it back in there again. Same spot. Now, let's check. Doesn't appear to be any cracks in there or nothing else, so which is good. Give this a little cleaning. So I'm gonna put this back in there, and then we will try it. Now, brake clean, when you put it on rubber, it swells rubber. Just FYI, and it'll shrink again, but it can make it very difficult to reinstall it. And this looks interesting because what I'm seeing already is this hose does not appear. Oh no, there's grooves in there. Okay, so it does go in there. You can't see, but the rubber is kind of blunt right here, and then in the case it's a half circle. So I was just like, what the heck? But what to me it looks like is you gotta kind of push it in and stick that rubber in there all at the same time. I think it's going to require a screwdriver or a pick just to kind of coach it in. There we go. Perfect. Get that rubber. I hope you guys can see this. Get that little rubber piece. There we go. And that tab. There. From what I see, it is seated all the way, so it should be good. I'm going to clean this bottom up and we will go test it. And then I'm going to actually leave this off for when I'm testing. Reason being, there's no screws that hold it. The vibrations always knock it off. So, yeah, we'll go test this and see if it's oiling now. We'll be back. Alright, it oils. It works. I don't know if it's going to show up. Yeah, you can see the oil there. So, not an uncommon problem with these saws. I don't understand why, but sometimes those oil pickups do come out of those little slots. I've had a couple like that. It's kind of weird because the way they lock in place like that, it's just weird that they don't, they just pop out. So, like I said, this one's a 180C, and so it has the easy start recoils, like it's got the spring assist. I'm not a fan of it, but when you get used to it, it's actually not that bad. But it's trying to get used to when you're used to horking over a saw and just giving her the beans. It's kind of weird having this assist. So, like I said, I don't mind it, but they are definitely a delicate thing. That doesn't come on the 170s as far as I know. I don't know if it's only the 180s or what here, but like I said, I've had a few of them, and it took a little bit to get used to, but I got used to them, and I don't mind them, but they're definitely something you have to get used to. It's an acquired taste. It's not for everybody. So she works, she runs. Yeah, I like these little saws. They're good just as a limbing saw or a utility saw. That's all they're, honestly, that's, in my opinion, that's all they're good for. I'm not a total hater on them. It's just, like, I'm used to running my 4260 or 026, however you want to look at it, and they got a lot more grip, right? So when you get to these little CC saws, they're just a different type of lad. Another issue with these ones that don't run. Oh, I didn't touch base earlier, but I did a carb kit in that. I did the carb kit on live, so that's why it's not in this video. This was a non-running saw when I got it originally. The only thing I didn't check was the spark arrestor. These things are notorious for plugging up, but you can tell this one's still clean. These things are notorious. These little saws, they're notorious for plugging up, especially if you run too rich of an oil mix or cheap two-stroke oil. They and when they plug up, these things won't run. Well, they'll run, but not. You should notice a decrease in performance as it gets more and more plugged up. Another thing to watch out, like I said, for not just these saws, any saws with spark arrest, period. Make sure you keep them clean. Keep them clean. Keep your saw happy. I'm going to get that other screw in a sec. But yeah, that's it. That's all there is to it on this one. We're going to put the cover on, put the chain on, sharpen it, and when we get a break in this, we got horrible weather right now. Crazy strong winds. It's snowing, it's raining, it's miserable out there. So when I get a chance, we'll get this thing barred up, sharpened up, and we're going to go test it in some wood and see how she does. I didn't pay much for this saw. I didn't plan on keeping this saw to begin with. I don't need it. I have other more powerful and just as about the same weight as saw. So I bought this one just to fix it and flip it. Yeah, nice little saw though. I don't mind them. They're good. Good for like just simple, easy peasy. They're a throwaway saw at the end of the day, right? So 180s, 170s. When they run great, but if I were to keep one, I would do it all over again, and I'd put a Walbro WT215 on one of these, the adjustable carburetor, and that's the way I would go with it. I would toss these Zamas out in a heartbeat if I was keeping it for myself. I would not. These fixed jet Zamas are problematic. Really problematic. But it is what it is. They're cheap, right? The throwaway. So, anyways, we're going to cut her out here, and catch you guys in the next one. Peace.